Well, Secretary Rubio, the World Food Program estimates that 8,000 children die from hunger every day. Until last Friday, over 123,000 rough boxes were purchased for Sudan, but were sitting in Rhode Island in a warehouse because of State Department delays. So my question for you is, are you doing everything you can to keep starving children from dying?
There was no State Department delays to that being deployed. There may have been other delays, but it wasn't State Department.
You must observe this exchange where a new Democratic Congressman attempts to trick Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and it completely failed. The scene involved stage props and large signs, amounting to pure political showmanship. Representative Amo clearly believed he had found a major fault regarding humanitarian aid, but he overlooked a critical point. Real-world events are not simple press releases. Rubio's counterargument was delivered with composed authority and undeniable facts. This confrontation is essential viewing. Let's examine the details of this decisive rebuttal.
Secretary Rubio, do you know what this is?
I'm sorry, my Lasix is not as good as it
That's
used
all
to
right.
be.
I'll explain. This is a ready-to-use therapeutic food, also known as a RUTF. It's produced in the United States by Adesia Nutrition in Rhode Island and Manna Nutrition in Georgia from American-grown farm products. A single box that I have right here of this miracle product can save a child from dying of severe acute malnutrition in only 6 to 10 weeks. Now, since January, you have promised over and over again that foreign aid freezes will not include life-saving assistance. RUTF save the lives of children who are starving around the world. Do you agree that this product is life-saving aid?
It can be, yes.
Well, Secretary Rubio, the World Food Program estimates that 8,000 children die from hunger every day. Until last Friday, over 123,000 rough boxes were purchased for Sudan, but were sitting in Rhode Island in a warehouse because of State Department delays. So my question for you is, are you doing everything you can to keep starving children from dying?
There was no State Department delays to that being deployed. There may have been other delays, but it wasn't State Department.
There were State Department delays. And it is clear that you have not done everything you can do to keep these kids from starving, because there are another 185,000 boxes of RUFs that the U.S. government and taxpayers have already paid for sitting in that same warehouse, all because the State Department doesn't have a plan, doesn't have its stuff together to get this rolling. So I can think of several countries where this aid is desperately needed, where these boxes of RUFs could save hundreds of thousands of children's lives. And these delays have real consequences, not just for starving children, but also jobs at home. I talked to the CEO of Adesia, who said they had to lay off 10% of their team due to the lack of payments from the U.S. government and a lack of clarity in March. So Secretary Rubio, will you commit to making decisions needed to move the remaining 185,000 boxes of RUFs to countries that need them by the end of this week?
Well, I'd be interested to learn what those impediments are.
Well, we've been talking about this for a while. I've sent you letters since January.
But there's no impediment on our end to distributing that.
There are impediments. I'm speaking directly to the
Sudan
source.
is a war zone.
Secretary, I'm reclaiming my time. This exists as a problem, and you have not acted.
That's false.
And maybe it's the case that you have too many jobs, because I know it's the case. It must be a lot to be the National Security Advisor, the National Archivist, or the head of USAID. That's a lot. I understand a lot of footballs. You're a football player. That's a lot of balls to catch. But the issue here is we have children who are dying. So will you commit to continuing to fund the production, transportation, and distribution of these domestically produced life-saving products to save starving children around the world?
They're approved now.
They are not moving. I just told you about 185,000 boxes in Rhode Island. I live there.
And you need to figure out why they're not moving, because it isn't an impediment from us.
Sir, you need to figure out. That's actually your job, sir.
No, it's no impediment from the State Department.
Well, Mr. Secretary, it seems like you will not make a commitment.
Sir,
it seems like you refuse to make a
commitment. We do more of that than anybody in the world, and we're going to continue to do it. We're going to continue to do food aid. We're going to do more food aid than any country on the planet times 10.
Well, that's a lot of talk. But I believe
those are numbers.
Seeing is believing, and there is not to be seen.
Those are numbers. Those are facts. We do more foreign aid.
Well, I've got numbers. I've got 185,000 boxes that aren't moving. So,
but the State Department doesn't move
I'm going to do you a little favor.
We authorize them.
Mr. Secretary, I'm reclaiming my time, sir. I'm going to do you a favor.
To move. Well, you ask questions you don't let anybody answer. I'm telling you, they're allowed to move.
And I have a question for you, and you're compelled to answer. Why don't you take 10 seconds now to turn to your staff and say, let's get this fixed?
My staff knows that this has been fixed.
There's no impediment
on the State Department side.
Well, then you have not proven that to me. If the people who are affected both here domestically and around the world, are not receiving this life-saving product.
They are receiving it.
Look, you staked your career in the Senate on supporting humanitarian aid, but now you won't make a commitment, or you're saying things have been done that haven't been done.
Commitment.
You've made a commitment?
We do more food aid than anybody in the world, and we're doing more today than anybody in the world.
Secretary, I'm reclaiming my time. You are speaking in generalities. I'm talking about specifics.
I'm speaking in specifics. We do more than anybody in the world, and we're doing more than anybody in the world right now at this very moment.
That's hyperbole, sir, because this has been disrupted because of your freezing of aid.
Who does more food aid than the United States?
Sir, why are you asking me questions? My job is to ask you questions.
Well, you're the one that's claiming that
Secretary, I'm reclaiming my time. Secretary, I'm reclaiming my client. This is why I'm introducing the Rubio Act. So you focus on the one job that the Senate gave you to serve as our Secretary of State because you are clearly distracted, okay? After the last few months, I understand why President Trump has such colorful nicknames for you. You're obedient. You're following the rules. You will do anything the president tells you to do without regard for the law, the Constitution, America's security, or standing as a leader in the world. Unlike you, I do not fear crossing Donald Trump. I refuse to give up on these children. I will be calling you once a week until you take action to fund RUTF and actually prove that you're doing this job to make sure you know how many children have died on your watch. Will you pick up my call?
No children are dying on our watch.
Will you pick up my call, sir?
Pick up your call?
When I call you to check in on your progress.
Our progress is already being made. We already do more than anybody in the world. No, but he's made some strong accusations here. We're doing more than anybody in the world. That food is being distributed now, and he knows that.
There are many layers here, but the most obvious point is that when a politician comes to a hearing armed with a physical object, like that small food packet, and a huge display board set up behind them, you are not witnessing serious deliberation. You are watching an audition, a theatrical display. Representative Amo aggressively tried to portray Secretary Rubio as a villain personally preventing starving children from being fed. He repeatedly held up the packet and mentioned supplies sitting and used in a Rhode Island warehouse, implying the State Department simply neglected to ship the boxes, as if they misplaced the tracking information. This is where Rubio effectively dismantled the claim using basic facts and logic concerning conflict areas. Amo was yelling about boxes stored in a warehouse, yet Rubio correctly noted that the State Department was not the source of the delays. Why? Because the situation in Sudan is an active war zone. This is a detail often forgotten in Washington. Sending food into the heart of a civil conflict is not a simple mail delivery. Rubio attempted to explain that distributing aid without a safe logistics plan results in it being looted by militia leaders or the delivery vehicles being destroyed. Blaming the Secretary of State for the inherent danger in Sudan is illogical. It's a logistics challenge posed by conflict, not a bureaucratic one. The switch to personal attacks. When Amo realized his logistics argument wasn't working, he immediately changed the subject. He went from discussing hunger to criticizing Rubio's professional history. You're the National Archivist, you're the National Security Advisor. Then, he brought up old insults given to Rubio by Trump. That moment marks where Amo completely lost credibility. When you must resort to campaign slurs from years past in a foreign policy debate, you lack a factual policy critique and are pursuing a personal vendetta. It came across as immature and desperate. The attempt at a legislative move, where he threatened to propose the Rubio Act to compel the secretary to focus on his duties, was a clear example of showboating. Rubio was likely several hours into testimony, managing global crises, and yet was subjected to a lecture about being distracted. I appreciated Rubio's final statement. We do more food aid than any country on the planet times 10. He is correct. The United States provides the majority of this international funding. For a member of Congress to lecture the head of the department that effectively feeds the globe about indifference is insulting. Oversight is essential, and Congress should ask substantive questions, but there is a clear difference between asking, "How can we solve the logistics problem in Sudan?" and shouting, "Will you take my phone call?" just to create a popular online video. Rubio remained composed, focused on the facts regarding the war zone, and refused to be shaken by the theatrical display. That composure is the defining difference between a seasoned government leader and someone merely seeking online validation. Please share your thoughts in the comments. Was this a legitimate challenge by Amo or just a performance for the cameras? I know my conclusion. Thank you for viewing.